On Valentine's Day, 1981, a 12-year-old boy crossed his grandmother's backyard in Centralia, Pennsylvania, and the ground swallowed him. It opened without warning, a hole in the frozen grass, breathing steam, 4 feet wide at the mouth and wider below, deep enough to kill him. He caught a tree root on the way down and held on while hot gas poured up past his face. His cousin reached him, gripped his arms, and pulled him back out of the earth. The vent below him was pouring out carbon monoxide, hot and concentrated enough that a few more minutes inside it would have killed him. The hole kept steaming after they ran. Photographers stood at a barricade that afternoon and watched it breathe. The boy lived. The town did not. Because what opened under him that morning had been burning beneath Centralia for 19 years, and the people in charge had known almost from the beginning. Centralia was an anthracite town. Hard coal built its streets in the 1860s and filled them with churches, hotels, a school, and rows of miners' houses pressed against the hillside. The seams beneath the borough belonged to the anthracite fields that had heated half the cities on the East Coast, and for a century, men went down into them and sent the coal up. By 1962, the deep mines were closed, but the coal was still there, thick veins of it, laced through miles of abandoned tunnels running directly beneath the streets. The people who stayed on through the decline were miners' widows, retired men with ruined lungs, and families who owned their homes outright and had nowhere better to go. The town had buried its boom years, and what was left ran on pensions, church suppers, and memory. That spring, the borough council had a smaller problem to solve: the landfill. An old strip mine pit on the edge of town, near the cemetery, was filling with trash ahead of the Memorial Day holiday, and the council wanted it cleaned. The cheapest way to clean a dump in coal country was the way it had always been done. On May 27, 1962, the fire was set. A controlled burn to thin out the garbage, lit in the pit, watched through the day, doused by evening. Except it was not out. The pit had a flaw that no one had sealed, an opening in the rock leading down into the coal itself. The fire found it and followed it under the town. By that summer, crews were digging at ground that smoked where no fire should have been. They excavated, flushed the old tunnels with water and crushed rock, and cut trenches along the burning seams, and the projects kept coming across the 60s and 70s, state and federal, each with its own engineers and its own budget. And every one of them ended the same way, with the money gone and the smoke still rising. More than once, crews thought they had cut ahead of it and found the fire already past the line. The fire moved through the abandoned workings faster than the machines could chase it, sliding beneath streets, beneath the church, beneath the homes above. Each failed attempt cost more than the last, and each time the work stopped, the fire kept going, patient, fed, and surrounded by enough coal to burn for generations. For the next 2 decades, Centralia learned to live on top of it. Steam rose from cracks in the highway. Snow refused to lie on certain yards, and gardens died from the roots up. Trees along the burning seams stood bare in the middle of summer. The smell came into kitchens, sulfur, faint at first and then not, and families screwed small machines to their bedroom walls, carbon monoxide monitors ticking through the night. Some families slept with windows cracked open in January because the numbers climbed when the house was sealed. Some houses registered gas at levels that made grown men dizzy in their own basements and people carried their arguments to council meetings and left them unsettled. The state measured, studied, and issued its reports, and more than $7 million went into the ground on projects that did not stop it, while boreholes drilled on the hillside read hundreds of degrees only a few feet down. The town split slowly into two camps, those who said the fire was directly under them, and those who insisted it was not. And it stayed divided that way until the morning the ground gave its own answer. After the boy came out of the hole, the cameras came in. Network news crews stood on Locust Avenue filming steam rise past porch rails, and congressional hearings followed. By the early 1980s, Washington had appropriated $42 million, not to put the fire out, but to buy the town off the top of it. Engineers had priced an honest fix, trenching the entire burn zone at a cost of hundreds of millions, with no guarantee it would work. Relocation was cheaper, so Centralia voted on its own existence and leaving won. It was not close, and it was not unanimous, and either way meant losing. The buyouts began: fair market value, moving costs, a check and a handshake, and more than 1,000 people took them by the end of the decade, scattering into the towns nearby. The local paper printed lists of who was going week after week, and neighbors stopped speaking over it. The ones who sold were accused of killing the town. The ones who stayed were accused of denying the fire beneath their own feet. The demolition crews worked house by house down the blocks, and more than 500 structures came down, leaving mown grass and the stubs of front walks going nowhere. The holdouts stayed, a few dozen at first, then fewer, year after year. In the early 1990s, the state took their deeds by eminent domain, and still they stayed, paying nothing, owning nothing, repainting the porches of condemned homes, cutting the grass on lots where their neighbors' houses had stood, insisting the fire was not under their end of town and never had been. In 2002, the Postal Service revoked the town's zip code, and Centralia no longer had an address. The highway south of the borough cracked open over the burn and was closed for good, left as a half-mile of buckled asphalt that strangers drove hours to cover in spray paint, until the state buried the whole road under dirt in 2020. The state posted warnings about unstable ground and invisible gas, and visitors came anyway. In 2013, after decades of lawsuits, the last residents won the only thing left worth winning: a settlement letting them stay in their houses until they die. The 2020 census counted what remained: 5 people, 4 streets, 1 church on the hill, still holding services above the fire. The fire is still burning, and it has been burning now for 64 years, longer than most of the people who fled it ever lived in the town, and longer than some of them lived at all. The estimates say it covers thousands of acres underground and could burn for another 250 years, and they are only estimates because no one can go down to look, and no one is trying to put it out anymore, and the state monitors it, maps it, and waits, because waiting is the only plan left. What remains above it is mostly field now: blocks of grass squared off by old curbs, concrete steps that climb toward porches no longer there, and a cemetery wider and better kept than the town that once surrounded it. And on cold mornings, the steam still rises out of the ground in thin gray lines, the breath of something that was lit to clean a dump before a holiday and has outlived every reason anyone had for lighting it. 5 porch lights still come on at dusk over the burn, and the people beneath them will be the last, And when the final one goes dark, the fire will not notice because it never did. That's another voice from the hollow. If this one stayed with you, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one, The Stories America Left Behind.